Because the kids are not in the house right now.
Oh.
So,
Are they still down in Nashville?
no, they went to Urbana.
I remember.
You can rise if you are able. Say the pledge.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
John Brotherton.
Here.
Moto Johnson.
Here.
Katie Johnston.
Here.
Diana Mendoza.
Here.
Deborah Sweat.
Here.
Nikki Pettit. Here. Robin Vaughn.
The first item is to approve
Call
the,
the order.
well, we just took.
Oh, we just did that.
Yeah.
So the, action item for the agenda, additions and corrections and modifications.
Are there any changes to the agenda? You want me to help?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, of course.
And if we wanted, anything we want to change on the consent agenda, we can do that when we get to the consent agenda.
Are there any changes?
Speak up.
Yes, are there any changes to the agenda?
No.
I'll use my outside voice.
So is there, no, is someone gonna make a motion?
I just need someone, can someone please make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Alright. John Brotherton.
Aye.
Diana Mendoza.
Aye.
Moto Johnson.
Aye.
Katie Johnston.
Aye.
Deborah Sweat.
Aye.
Nikki Pettit.
Aye.
I want to clarify one thing, because we stumbled there a little bit. So one of the things we're doing tonight is, with the board, the vote order, it's supposed to be random on the calling the vote, and she's just been reading them alphabetically, and we didn't, there's a little number there, so she's gonna go
So I really have to
in the
pay
random
attention to
order.
the little number too.
Except the chair votes last. Okay. So that's why that time it was, so it should be a different order next.
Yes,
Okay.
okay.
Whew. Did anyone turn in public comment?
I did not get anything. Nope. Speak to our public.
To
Nope.
go on to the consent agenda. Just the next item is the approval.
The next item is the approval of the consent agenda items.
I'd like to request that items 4H-I-N-J be removed from the consent agenda for further discussion.
That would be,
For H, I, and J.
so that, on what I got up there.
Okay,
That's the
that was
MOUs.
the
handbooks,
MOUs,
and contracts.
the student handbook, student and staff handbook, and the contracts.
Did you want them removed
For
To-
this,
to discuss
yes,
tonight?
yes.
So just to clarify, does the board just want to discuss it, or do we want to have separate votes on those items?
We can have separate votes.
Okay. So we
So
will do that.
there's no
Okay,
That's fine.
confusion,
Okay.
clear.
okay.
All right, so on the remaining items, which are, I've got them, they're numbered differently on here, my apologies.
So we
And
can-
unless, I don't have anything really to present on those, but if there's no discussion, then someone would make the motion.
Okay, would someone like to make the motion to approve the remaining consent agenda items? Including personnel report as submitted with the stipulation that each individual is required to comply with all requirements for new hires as indicated in Illinois statutes and RCS board policy and procedures, including ratification of bills prepaid by the finance manager under board policy 4.5.
I'll make that motion back to you for you.
I'll second it.
Is there a second?
Yeah. Deborah Sweat.
Aye.
Moto Johnson.
Aye.
Diana Mendoza. Aye. Katie Johnston.
Aye.
John Brotherton.
Aye.
And Nikki Pettit.
Aye.
So that was a different order. All right. Now, on those 3 items that were removed from the consent agenda, just to clarify, Hannah will just have to call those votes because they're not already in the computer, set up in separate votes. So I'm just gonna help, unless you don't want to.
No, you know.
Okay. So, the first item for additional discussion is approval of the memorandum of understanding. Did you want to go ahead and start?
Yeah, I just had a few questions for clarification and for better understanding. The mentoring program that has the MOU in it, there's a stipend and a program that was established when to have teacher mentors and to mentor the new teachers. When was that established?
And I'm going to ask Tom to answer.
So there had been a mentor program previously in the district several years ago that ended up kind of going away. Last year was the first year we brought it back. We have teacher vacancy grant funds, so I'm in charge of that grant, and as our committee, one of the committees that met, thought we needed a mentor program, and so we're currently using funds to pay both the mentee and the mentor to participate in that program in their first year. So this will be the second year of this kind of a program where they're being paid for it.
Okay.
One question. How do you go about is it like a voluntary, does everybody get the opportunity, as in any of the teachers in the district get opportunity to do this, or do you guys pick? I mean, not you
We
personally.
send out a survey that teachers can basically apply to be a mentor in the district. Yep. And so last year was a really well-received program. There's a pretty well-known book out there for both the mentor and the mentee. And so it was basically a book study throughout the entire year for both the mentors and the mentees. The mentors got additional training beyond what the mentees got, so they went to meetings together, and then the mentors actually had separate meetings where they got training on how to be specific mentors. As you can see in the MOU, there's a different stipend for returning mentors because they went through that book study last year.
Okay.
There's less of a commitment for them this year because they're already trained mentors.
Okay, that was going to be my next question.
Yeah, and Kelly Crawford did a lot with it, as well as Lindsay Rubach and Michelle Fry did a lot of the presentations with the staff, and it seemed to be really well received by all of our new teachers, just to help them get their feet underneath them. And that was part of the charge of the vacancy grant, is find those ways that empower your teachers and make people want to come work with you, and that seems to be a good selling point for the district. It's one of the first questions we get asked when we go to like career fairs is if we have a mentor program, so it helps us.
Have you noticed improvement not only in the teachers, but any of the students that are going through the mentor program?
Yeah, I think so. I think we have had less turnover this year in our new staff. It seems like they feel more supported in the buildings.
Okay.
And we have really good teachers, so it was good to get the mentors that we have. We know they're quality teachers, and they're teaching our new teachers what needs to be done, so I think it's been pretty beneficial. Yeah.
What about effectiveness in the classroom of the students? And what metrics are you using to determine if this program is effective? And how long do you plan, is this something that you plan to extend each year, or how many more years on the contract?
So the mentor
Or the grant?
The grant is going to expire at the end of this year.
End of this year,
Yeah.
okay.
So we'll have to have a discussion at the district level if that's something we feel we can take on. In some districts, it's not a paid mentorship. It's just kind of a requirement of the job, so that would be something we'd kind of have to discuss. And we'd probably have to bring an MOU to you if we decide to move forward with an unpaid mentor, because if we're going to make a requirement, that would have to go through negotiations with the union.
Okay,
Yeah.
because that's what I was wondering. I could see something like that being in, or as a requirement in the job description, or in those other duties as assigned.
Yeah.
So that's why I was wondering.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
seems like a good program,
Yeah,
based on what you
and it hasn't
described.
been a requirement in the district for, I don't know how many years, so we thought this was a good kind of first attempt to get it restarted and back in the mainstream for what we're doing.
And
Now,
it
will
is a
there be a
big
final-
commitment of
Sorry.
time.
I'm
Right,
sorry,
so
what?
It is a big time commitment, so
Uh-huh.
when we talk about other duties as assigned, this really is well beyond the hours that
That it
staff
should
would be
be
doing.
in the job description, okay. Will there be a final report, something that measures?
I hadn't planned on it, but it's something I could discuss with the committee. A lot of it is, we're just looking at retention, I think would be our big metric, to see if it helps retain those teachers within the district long term.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
If there's once there's no discussion, then someone would call the vote. No, we have to vote on each line item separately. Is there any more discussion on the MOUs or any more questions?
I have just a comment, I thank Tom for it, and with the other people.
Yeah, they've been doing a lot of hard work with that, so.
Yeah, and what I liked about it is the idea to really bring it back and make it a big program came from the staff. And that was the committee work that Tom was doing with the teachers, and they wanted it.
I would like to add that the special ed
Right,
department was actually doing this mentoring program on our own before this, so we have been doing this for a
Duly
few
noted.
years. Yes, thank you.
Yes.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Kelly Crawford did a lot of work with this for our department too.
Anything else you
A lot
like
of personal.
positive about sped? All right, so then if there is no more discussion, someone will just call a motion on the approval of that memorandum of understanding.
Are we done discussing everything?
I'm sorry.
Are we done discussing everything?
Yes.
Okay,
For that one, right?
right, for
And that's
H.
for
So for H, someone would
Would
make a
someone
motion.
like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the memoranda of understanding posted.
I second.
Hearing me, I think.
I second.
Okay. Hold on one
I
second.
trail off and mumble too, so I'm trying really hard not to.
No problem. I just need to tune in.
All right. Well, but if I do a vote, then it's for all three. There's things I can't do. I'm just going to this so I can see everybody's names and not have to look at them.
Okay, okay.
Okay, so we're voting on 4H,
Yes.
just the MOUs right
The
now. Okay.
MOUs,
All right.
which I think is 4.8 on now.
John Brotherton.
Aye.
Diana Mendoza.
Aye.
Deborah Sweat.
Aye.
Moto Johnson.
Aye.
Katie Johnston.
Aye.
Nikki Pettit.
Aye.
All right.
Now, we have a discussion about the annual approval of handbooks and family student staff substitutes.
So there's 3 handbooks, the family student handbook, the staff handbook, and the substitute handbook.
Okay, just wanted to bring up for discussion. Let's start out with the staff handbook. What kind of caught my eye and made me question was, teachers driving students using their personal cars, in the course of the job. Under what circumstances would a teacher or any staff member use their personal car to transport a student?
So we do have a policy in place that was approved by the board last year, defining when staff would transport students and putting the parameters on that. So specifically, it should be an administrator, or someone directly designated by the administrator. It should be 2 staff in the vehicle. They should be informing the parent prior to doing the transport, and then the student has to be secured properly in the back seat, with the other thing, no matter what. So, what it looks like, and so the change to the handbook this year was just about insurance. So making sure that, and it was really not even about transporting students, it was about any time an employee is driving their vehicle for their work.
Correct.
And so it is really pretty unusual for most of our staff to ever drive a student. It's gonna be administrators, people like social workers, parent-family liaisons. And we encourage them to use the district vehicle whenever it's available.
Okay, and so the school will not assume any liability if they use their personal vehicles?
So we would,
You will.
yeah, is my understanding. I'd have to, I don't have the insurance policy in front of me, but
Okay.
if it is part of their job, then the way I understand it is that the district does indemnify them because they're doing their job.
Okay.
So that's why I think what we're trying to make sure is that we're putting all the parameters around when they should do it. So, but it is, right, so I think what I don't have a clear answer on, which is part of why we're asking for this, is we have a handful of employees that, well, they'll turn in for mileage, right, because they're in 2 schools. So, they're not on our insurance when they drive their car between those 2 schools, right? If they were transporting a student in their car, I think it's different. So we need to make sure that if they believe that they're required to drive their personal vehicle for work, that they're properly insured before we start compensating them for mileage.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I mean, if I'm probably going too far into this, but yeah, I mean, if I choose to drive a student and it's not my job at all to drive a student, and I get in an accident, the district may not be responsible because that wasn't, you weren't even supposed to be driving that kid. It's a different issue, right? And we have had that come up in the past. And that does with sports sometimes and things. And they should not be transporting students in those circumstances.
And that's what I was wondering, if there were instances like that. We have to go, at St. Mal, about 99% is parent transport. And so there's training we have to go through, as well as, sure, you do as well here at RCS. Fingerprinting, all of that, we have to go through training, supply, driver's license, and proof of insurance is all kept on file there at the school. So just wanna make sure that the teachers are protected, because if they're using their car and they're not protected under RCS policy, then if they use their car, nowadays, you have to carry a different type of insurance. I think it's more commercial insurance. Otherwise, your insurance company can refuse to honor your claim. So just wanna make sure the teachers are covered and will be covered. And if there is a question mark, then maybe need to look at the policy.
Sure.
Do not use your personal, we have.
Right, so I made a note too, I can share with the whole board again, the policy that was approved last year that kind of puts those guidelines on when we would transport students.
Okay. And is that in the handbook? It's in the handbook outlined clearly?
I don't remember if that policy is specifically in the handbook or not.
Okay. Just so it's not vague and it's outlined, and you can't say they didn't know, didn't see, etc.
Yes, I think what Debbie's saying, with the St. Malachy's, and of course it's under a different district, private also, because, at least when I was working there, when I was a coach, the program that I had to go through was, I had to actually get a chauffeur's license for the school's insurance to cover me. And, so, I mean, it's not
I would say
something,
it's very
it's
unusual.
not
that
real
we
intense,
transport
but
students.
it's still something that you had to go through. There was a lot of, food handling, a lot of different things that, I had to do there compared to some of the other districts that I worked in and coached in, so.
And the language we're putting in is recommended by our insurer. They provided the modeling, so the language in the staff handbook is model language that we were provided from the insurance.
Okay.
Also, they're aware of it.
They actually, yeah, they recommended that we add it, so.
Oh,
Yeah.
and we-
Oh, okay.
Is there any more discussion?
On any of the handbooks?
Any
Oh,
other-
the student, I was just curious, I know you summarized each change, what the change was gonna be, but it wasn't the exact language.
No,
Um,
it wasn't. You're correct.
I'm sorry, popped up, no internet, okay.
Oh,
Okay. but it's back on.
That could cause problems down the hall at registration.
Shut us down, okay. There are 10 points, summary of changes to the student and family handbook. I was looking, and I did not see the exact language. Did I miss something? You summarized each point. Like for example, Rise Academy section. Added a detailed section outlining the assignment, expectation, procedures for students placed in RISE, the district alternative learning environment. What are those? What
It's
is-
in the student handbook.
It's in the student handbook, but you said that you added a detailed section. Is it already in the handbook, or will be added?
Right, so the version of, it should be in the version of the handbook that's in the board packet.
Okay,
So what I was summarizing, and I doubt I listed every single line item that was changed. I was trying to capture the main points.
okay.
But yeah, those are already put into the handbook, so
Okay.
there's a group of administrators that make the changes and do the updates.
And where is the non-discrimination clause? And the only reason I was kind of focused on that is because of some incidents last year where there was discriminatory activity being reported, and I did not feel that it was addressed, more swept under the rug. Parents that I aided in the community, there were racial slurs, teachers allowing racial conduct to happen in the classroom. I was not pleased to hear that.
Mhm.
And some of the students are still traumatized by it. And we need to set the tone and make sure that the policy is enforced. And it's something I plan to look at and monitor, especially this year, and hope that there are some more positive changes toward that. And that's why I keep bringing up the social equity working group. Our non-discrimination, those statements, and but
No, she came in and had set down a shirt.
oh,
All we
okay,
got out of this was a t-shirt.
Oh,
Sweatshirts for people.
okay,
Give
but
me
to,
one.
but it's serious that we need to, focus on that. Because this should be, our school system should be an inclusive environment, an accepting environment. And it hasn't, been that way, and even over the summer, we're hearing parents talk about, the racism in the schools. And it's not just RCS, it's all over, okay? Our community and all of our schools here in this community, from the high school to the private. And it's something that needs to be addressed.
It is, it's actually all through the state, even, there's a lot of different things that's going on and being said. Even in District 4, using that as an example. A lot of different type of racism and bullying that's going on in the schools that aren't being handled for one reason or another. So that is, I think you're right, I think that's something that we need to keep an eye on and make sure we try to handle in a better way. I mean, to keep us from, getting in a position to where we're not doing something when it's being told to us.
I'm slightly distracted that Ms. Stevens just walked in with a bunch of clothing.
Just in case.
Sweatshirts?
It looks like
Sweatshirts.
sweatshirts now.
Sweatshirts and-
Sweatshirts, but I don't know what sizes.
I'm
so
sorry,
just-
I was not smirking at anything anyone was saying.
No, no. I didn't even hear it come behind me. So,
Is that it for the,
yes,
okay, and what about the staff handbook?
we discussed that.
Okay,
Yeah, just wanna make sure that the teachers are protected, the district is protected.
okay.
And hopefully there has not been any there haven't been any accidents.
No.
Fender benders.
Nope, not that I'm aware of.
Kid kicking
So
out
they're
a
supposed to
window.
report it in 24 hours.
Right,
if there's an issue.
Right.
We need to know right away.
Yes.
So is there a motion to approve, the approval, the annual approval of handbooks?
Make a motion to approve the, annual handbooks for friendly students, staff, and substitutes.
I second that. Okay. John Brotherton,
Aye.
Diana Mendoza,
Aye.
Deborah Sweat,
Aye.
Moto Johnson,
Aye.
Katie Johnston,
Aye.
Nikki Pettit.
Aye. And now for the discussion of the approval of contracts.
Just the fact that I do understand the need, but like I said, I wanted to bring it to discussion, not just for our sake, but also for the public who may be watching and in the minutes. Apparently these contracts are to outsource some of the services, am I correct, Dr. Woods? That are needed within the district. One is for evaluation, I think Ms. Didier, of IEPs, et cetera. And then one is for speech services. And that is due to the lack of being able to hire into the district, correct?
Yes.
So, because of that, with these, I don't see any problem with them. They are costly for the district. However, I'm wondering, especially what is it, CSES, what's that, Center for Special Ed Services? Will they provide any feedback, follow-up on compliance?
As far as compliance with IEPs?
Correct.
No, so that wouldn't be the role of a school psychologist. So what this contract is, we have 3 full-time school psychologists. Their role is participating in the IEP meeting, completing the actual assessments that only a school psychologist can do, and then determining eligibility. But beyond that, even our in-house school psychs, that's not a role that they would fill in terms of compliance. That's more, my department. So what this contract is we're simply hiring someone to come in and do the testing so that the 2 that we do have are not overloaded, given the 3rd position that's open that hasn't been filled.
Okay. So it's that 3rd position.
And this is not a full-time replacement, basically. So we took a look at the number of anticipated evaluations that we'll have this school year because of the 3-year window that they have to be reevaluated, and just kind of made an estimate of how many we would need to bring someone else in to assist with based on our average numbers every year. So this is, just to give you a general ballpark, this is going to cost about less than a third of what we would be paying salary and benefits for a full-time psychologist. So our 2 school psychologists that are still with us are taking on some extra responsibility
They are,
this
okay.
year. Yep.
Okay. Now, because of this, are they being compensated for taking on additional responsibility?
Not outside of their contract, because there is no, there's nothing in their job description that has a limit of you're required to only complete 30 evaluations, right? I have done some comparisons with local districts just to determine, what is the average number of evaluations that a school psychologist would complete, just to make sure we're still, in the reasonable range for them. So
Sounds great. Sounds like you're on top of things. Now, is it the speech
yes.
that, what is that, Faye or something like that? How are their services? It's, if I'm not mistaken, was it 95 up to 45 hours a week? How often is this the first year doing this? Do you anticipate the full 45 hours, or will it be less than that on a more consistent basis?
It's going to be 35 hours.
35.
Yeah, so this one's a little bit different because, I mentioned that the school psychologist is just based on the number of assessments. That's not based on hours necessarily. It's a flat fee for assessments. The speech contract is more like hiring a full-time person at that hourly rate. So to answer your other questions, no. Since I started here in 2017, we've had a contractual speech provider every year, I think, except for last year. And again, this is common practice in the world of special education right now with our shortages. So, this would be contracting someone who is going to be full-time. And so those hours would be consistent every week, and they would be filling the role of a full-time school SLP.
And you said that's 35 hours?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, and then anything over that will be at the overtime rate?
No, what's written into the contract is that you can go up to 45 without getting into overtime.
Okay.
And we would not get to that point.
You won't get to that point,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion to approve the contracts?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the contracts. As stated.
I second.
John Beverton.
Aye.
Diana Mendoza. Deborah Sweat.
Aye.
Noto Johnson.
Aye.
Katie Johnston. Nikki Pettit.
Now we're at number 5. Oh, no, number 6, right? Which is district budgeting.
Yes, everyone's excited for a presentation.
Yes.
All right. And Tom and Allison, I'm sure you're needed down at registration.
Probably.
Or would you like to stay here?
Which one?
While we're in the Ryan voting, they did bring in sweatshirts, but I feel like the temperatures changed while we
It has.
Did you adjust the thermostat? Okay, somebody did some. It turns off at 6, doesn't it?
Probably.
Yep, that's what it is. Yep, okay. So with some discussion with board president and vice president over a month ago, I thought it would be a good idea to put a real quick presentation together about budget. So what I want to start with is really everything that you need to see, for the most part, that you would like to see, probably maybe too much information, is already in your board packet. And I think what I'm going to try to do here is help you be able to look at what's in the board packet maybe a little better to understand what you're seeing. Also, how to look at the budget document and maybe make a little more sense of it. I say all of that I've now been a school administrator for over 20 years. In school, finance and budgeting is probably the most complicated thing that we do. Even the people who are accountants, it's school finance is different than the regular world of accounting. That's why, we're down to very few people left that will even audit school districts. He's made a good business of that, Mr. Rustley. So let's get into it. So to start off, I'm going to confuse you all by saying, do you know what this means? Okay. The answer is, I might know what it means, but this is like the secret code to understanding district budgeting and district finances. And if you've worked in other systems, it's just accounting codes. That's all it is, but everybody has their own system. What I can tell you is all school districts have a system that's very similar to this in Illinois, because we're required to follow a uniform accounting system. So Diana knows, because she used to have to put in all those purchase orders for the building. Hannah knows,
I know all of it.
because she gets to do a lot of this too. All right, so we're going to teach you what this means. But take a step back. There's 2 things we're looking at in a school district, and this part is like your home, okay, your home budget. We have revenues, what our income is, and we have expenditures, which will be on the next slide. What I want to point out, though, is RCS is very different than the average in the state. The average in the state, a school district is getting almost 2/3 of their funding from local property tax dollars. That is not the case for Rantoul. We're below 30%. So what you'll see different for us is we get a lot of state funding and a lot of federal funding. And I've talked about this in the past. The main reason for that is the property value per pupil in Rantoul is relatively low. So we do have a high tax rate, but the value of the property being taxed is relatively low. Fortunately, several years ago, the state put in the system of evidence-based funding, which allowed the state to start to shift how it was spending dollars more equitably, meaning districts that served lower income students, and then they use a whole lot of other variables and they're not just income, are getting higher amounts of new money as the state does their allocation, and that's called evidence-based funding. And then the next part is expenditures, okay? So on expenditures, I would say we're not that different from the state, right? The largest amount that a school you would hope is spending is on education, okay? For us, it's education, operations, transportation, and then debt service. So our top four are the same as the state average top four. And debt service is paying off bonds. And all of our bonds are paid off with 1% sales tax for our district. Okay, so school districts, we have 9 different funds. So all of our expenses are tied to 9 different types of funds. As I said already, the 2 largest is Fund 10, Education, and Fund 20, Operations. So whenever we're budgeting, and even when we collect property tax dollars, so the property tax dollars come into each one of these funds is a different tax levy. So if we levy 1% for education, that money must go into the education fund. And so there are 9 funds total. We do not levy in the Fire Prevention and Safety Fund. I honestly don't know why we don't, other than it's not needed anymore, would be the big one. Maybe somebody else knows, but I don't know why it's not a thing that we have to do anymore.
Fire prevention, is it needed?
No, it is, but we don't levy separately for that. We would do all of that through operations and maintenance or capital projects. Yeah. So there's probably a reason at some point in state history where we had to have more money going into just for fire prevention, would be my guess. So you'll never see a Fund 90 account for us. That's all I was getting at. You'll see Fund 10, and if you think back to that first slide, there's a whole bunch of 10s at the beginning, right? Because I was showing you education fund accounts, all right? Which are our most common ones that we have. Now, so the first thing is we have funds, and then we have functions, all right? And there's no test on this, there's no quiz, I promise. But basically there are 6 functions of spending. So instruction, I'm not gonna read them all to you, but when you look in the budget document, what you will see is it's gonna be very broad, and that's what I wanted to highlight. So we spent we budgeted, this was FY25's budget, I think is where I took the screenshots. We budgeted $16 million for instruction initially. Okay, that's all that means. There's no breakdown here of how we're spending that, not yet. Okay, so we're spending $60 million in education for what? Okay. And I think a lot of people think that's what the budget is going to say. It's like, oh, you're spending this much to pay the superintendent, and it's going to be listed in the district's budget. No, it's going to be listed within, I actually don't know which function my salary would come out of. I picked the worst example. All right. So then it's objects. You have functions first, then objects. So salaries, we budgeted $20.6 million for salary, almost $3 million for benefits. And so that makes sense. The largest expenditures we have are salary and benefits. And that's most public service organizations or groups, you're going to see it that way. most government entities. And so we budgeted that. It doesn't mean that on the last slide, we didn't budget 16 million for instruction and then an additional 20 million for salaries, right? You can't see what I'm pointing at. Right, so they're overlapping in each other. So there's one function 1,000 education fund, and then there's function 100 salaries. So, yeah, not all salaries are coming out of education fund. So O&M, operations and maintenance salaries would be an example. They're not coming through education fund. So those are the big things, and when I get to show you the secret code at the end, you'll be able to read the matrix, okay? So this is all gonna make sense in the end. Then at the end of the accounts, you're gonna see sources. So the source codes are, most of our account numbers have a source code that's six zeros here down on the bottom, because most of our spending is not tied to a grant. So that state evidence-based funding spending is not tied to a grant. We have a lot of flexibility with that funding. Any property tax money, that's not grant funding. So those are just coded as 6 zeros. Anything that's a grant or a special project would be coded with a unique grant code. All right, and so I'll point out these two here. So our largest grant that we get is Title I, and it's 4,300. But underneath Title I, there's other sub-grants that we get. So those are all going to start off with that 43. So the other one we get, other big one we get is school improvement, and that's assigned 3-1. And I actually think those codes come from the state level. I don't even know that that's something we determine. So you put all of, then I did, somewhere I say oh yeah, there's more. All right, there's the fiscal year in the account number, and then the specific location. The specific location didn't always used to be in there, but the state now requires that we do yes, there's an expenditure breakdown by location, and there's a nice name for it, and Chris Johnson was working on it today. And that ends up being reported in our school report card when they pull things like spending per pupil at a specific location. Yeah, I don't know.
East along.
All right. So each school has East Lawn, yes. Each school has a different code. All right. So now, does this make sense to you now? Of course it does. Well, I'm going to break it down a little. All right. There, this is helpful. So I took this is one account line, and this is so like people like Chris Johnson, she can look at this and know exactly what it is. She reads it like language, right? I can ask her, I need to buy this, what account would it come out of? And she can go, she knows what function, what object, and then she's gonna want to know what's the source we're gonna use for it. Is it gonna be a grant? And then we will tie it back to the school. So you go through it, and the first is the fund. So that's gonna be, most commonly it's the ed fund. It could be O&M, it could be capital outlay. And then the next one you're going to see most commonly is E for expenditure. The only other type would be R for revenue. So when you look at the printout of the budget details that we could download from Skyward, there'd be a section of revenue accounts and a section of expenditure accounts. Then what location the spending is tied to, and then we get into those function, object. So I have a list of the functions and object codes that I keep to help me understand it. And then if it's tied to a grant, we have to identify the fiscal year and then the funding source. So I can look at this one and know that it is for JWA or junior high, 27, and that it is for instructional supplies. So it's 4,000 is instructional supplies. It's for education-based instructional supplies. So it's not cleaning materials for the custodians, all right? And I know that she's paying for it out of a 25-26 school year grant, and what that 4331 is the school improvement grant. All right, so this is complicated, I feel like, but hopefully it's starting to get a little more clear for you. In each one of these functions and objects, those do get tied back into that budget document, but not at a very detailed level. So what you see on the budget form, and I'm just gonna talk about, did I say revenues?
Is it the only other letter that we would see is the farm?
Yeah, okay. So what you're gonna see on the, is revenues. So what I'm gonna point out is, so the source for this funds for the junior high is a school improvement planning grant, which is part of Title I. So we anticipated last year in the budget that we were gonna get a total of $1.7 million for Title I. So this is what you see on the budget form. You don't even see the split out of if it's regular Title I, which is for low-income households, or if it's school improvement grant funds. It's not even broken down on the budget form that way. So for expenditures, it's different. It is broken down on the expenditure side by the fund function. So there's a whole section on there that gives you a breakdown of what's happening in the education fund, for example. And then what is happening that is supplies, or instruction, excuse me. And then the object would be supplies and materials. So in total, as a district, we allocated $603,000 for supplies and materials last year. But that doesn't matter what source of revenue was coming in. That's just what we were projecting we would spend on supplies and materials. So that's what you would see in the budget form. So how do the numbers get into the budget form? So what happens in the background is something that looks like this. And you get this is your monthly budget report from June, so yeah, it was from a month ago or so. So you're getting the monthly budget report, which is a listing of all of those accounts in the background and how much was allocated, so that's the original budget, how much was spent during that month, how much was spent during that fiscal year, and then how much is still remaining in that account. This report itself is extremely large. I don't know if any of you have printed it, but it's very long. And obviously not all accounts are used. So I'm gonna highlight, so I did pull the page that's the 4331 for JW Ayer from last year. And so, so what happens in the background is we have to build it. And by we, I really mean Chris Johnson. So she has to go in and build it. Typically, we do not do zero-based budgeting. We roll over year to year, and we're looking at about how much did we spend last year out of this, and where do we need to make adjustments. So she's not manually entering brand new data for every single thing. And then what we do essentially uploads from Skyward directly into that budget form, and then I'll just say magic happens in the background, and it puts everything in the right places based on the account numbers that are in there. So this is really, if you want to see how things are being spent, and that's what I'm going to get into. So I took a specific one, right, from that school improvement grant account. So we can call it whatever we want internally. This is just called SIP online subscription. So I know that, so at the beginning of the year, Heather, the principal, Heather Jacobs, she chose to allocate $3,500 of her budget for that, okay? And then I know, she didn't spend any money in June, but over the year she spent that, okay? So that's all you're getting on your monthly report. Where we can drill down more is take that same, I'm on the wrong one. Okay, good. I don't know why I have the slide there. So we're gonna come back. I just wanted to show, this is what you see in your packet. Okay. And you can see here that this line item, for instance, is over budget. There's a few lines down. If it shows a negative, it's over budget. So I would prefer you not try to get me at a board meeting and say, why is that one line over budget today? Because I wouldn't know, I would have to look it up and find out. But it doesn't mean the overall budget's over budget, if that makes sense. So what I want to emphasize is whatever we're putting into the budget, so Heather put in that $3,500, that's just a general broad placeholder. There's nowhere that she is expected to list out the specific items that she's going to purchase with that $3,500. Sometimes she knows, like, I've got to buy this specific thing. Sometimes she knows something's going to come up and she knows she's going to have to renew something, right? But she doesn't know exactly usually what that $3,500 is going to be spent on. But you do get a monthly board report that shows, so if Heather had spent out of that account that month, it would show up on the check register report. The check register report does not show the specific account number. I don't know if that would be helpful or if anyone would care, but what we're really generating for that one for the board is literally every check that was cut. So that's the report you're getting. So we have to look in Skyward into the specific account to see what Heather spent during the year. Okay, and there's no way I can give you access to that. It's taken me a while to figure out just how to find it on my own. I usually call Chris or Yasmin in the business office and say, what did Heather spend that money on in that account? So, but I pulled it up for you guys. And I know it's small, but really she made 2 purchases. So I'm gonna go out on a limb and say she knew actually at the beginning of the year that she had to make those 2 purchases because she was only off by $90, right? You also look, one of these, this high five, and I would have to ask her what it is. It's a renewal, and she did it on July 10th. So she knew right away that she was gonna need to spend that money, so she had this program that she was going to use in the school. Junior Library Guild is a library-based purchase, and they made that mid-year. So that's the level of detail that we are able to see. So some of our accounts get very, very extensive, as you can imagine. Yeah.
So the administrator of the building, can they change that monthly, or is that actually changed every month on what they're gonna, their budget, what they're thinking that they may spend that month?
No. So they have to try to, just like
They have to do that on
they have
full
to try
year?
to figure out at the beginning of the year whether it's
All the way through?
So we do amendments during the year. Okay.
That'd be rough.
So within a grant, so within that school improvement grant, for example, we've done 2 amendments during the year. And so one of the things that happened on that school improvement grant is we got a significant increase in funding in March. The state had extra funds basically. So much money that we're struggling to spend it because the main thing we spend money on is hiring people, and those grants are very much restricted. But Heather would have then gone into her school improvement grant and made amendments to how she was going to spend that money. But we have to get approval on that from IGE within those grants if we do it. And we have to do a board budget amendment anytime the amount of money in one of those funds, so number 10 is the ed fund, if we're going to shift that amount by a certain percentage, or when we did this at the last meeting too, if we're going to move money from one fund to another, that requires board approval. But amending the budget itself has to happen when the numbers change by a certain amount. But not if Heather moves money from the school improvement grant from online subscriptions to hard copy books, because that's 2 different accounts, which makes grant accounting fun. So I want to, I showed Robin this, board president Vaughn, this, and she's like, oh yeah, that's what she's like, this is what she was kind of asking me about, and we finally got to it. So this is one grant. This is probably the simplest one I've dealt with this year. This is a Title I grant, a school improvement grant. This is the one I was showing you, those expenditures from Heather from the junior high. So Northview and the junior high are the only 2 schools that were involved in that grant this year. So I just took a screenshot. This is what we have to enter into ISB's system for the grant reporting. So, and I've just done the upload for FY26 on this grant. We have to spell out in detail, so 200, this was Title 1, I'm sorry, I'm using the wrong one. So Title 1's our largest grant. So we spent, last year, we knew at the beginning of the year, we're gonna spend a very specific number, $288,000 on reading interventionists. And that's paid out of this grant. Then we have to spell out, and it's a couple lines down, 1,200, how much we're gonna have to pay in benefits for those people. So of our, I wanna say it was maybe 1.1 million on that title grant, you know, we're over 325,000 of it is salary and benefits for 5 people. Okay, and then we can't move forward with this spending unless we've got, this gets uploaded to ISB, there's multiple grant reviewers that have to look at it and approve it before we can start spending. And then we do have to do quarterly expenditure reports to the state on all the grants, as well as periodic reporting, which is a narrative of how we've spent the money. So behind the scenes, there is a lot of detail that goes into it. But this kind of takes me back to the Pleasant Acres parking lot project, right, that we approved at the last board meeting. There's nowhere that looks like this. There's nowhere in the district budget that ever really spells out, we're gonna spend $50,000 on a parking lot, right? There would have been a line item in the budget for maintenance for that school. That's what you would see, and not even on the budget, that's what you would see on that, this document that looks more like this, the budget report.
Why would it have been in the meeting? Oh, never mind.
It would have been in the maintenance area. Yeah, and most of our spending is tied to staffing, and I call those, most people call them this, those are some of our fixed costs. Like there's things that are flat. We don't have really a lot of discretionary money that's not already assigned to something. Schools and departments are allocated funds directly. So, right, if you take off salary and benefits off the top, then, you know, maybe we have 15% of our money left to start to allocate out for specific purposes. I mentioned already that we don't do a zero-based budget, we do base it on spending from the prior year. So each school gets a certain amount of money. And then departments, and when I say departments, the big ones are gonna be student services, which is special education, and facilities are the departments that get funded. So, I made up a school here just for fun, how it works. So Eastview Broadcare, that's the school. Eastview Broadacre, that's what it was called. Spent $9,000 on materials last year, so we'll call it that school. But last year they had a new math curriculum, and we needed to buy a lot of new materials for the new math curriculum. This year, the school is gonna have fewer students because we reorganized. And there's no new curriculum. So, what should the principal do for her materials and supplies budget? Right? So that's where they're gonna have discretion. So she may decide, and I say she because all of our elementary principals are females, she might say, I'm not gonna put $9,000 into materials and supplies this year because I wanna buy new furniture for a classroom instead, okay? But really it does get down to that basic when we're doing spending.
What's the process for if they want to account, like, if they want additional money, like, in the beginning of the year? Cause, you know, like, yes, you could decrease it, I'm assuming, okay.
No, go on.
No, I
I
didn't
was
know
just
if you
seeing
did.
what I had left.
Okay, no, it's all good. Cause, you know, if you're assuming like 50 for one school, but they need 60 for the things they come up with, I just didn't know how they request that time.
Well, they do all the time. I've never met a principal, including myself at the time, that didn't want more money. Usually the only kind of extra requests are gonna come up because they were unexpected,
Okay.
I would say. So right now, I'll give an example. Miss Blomberg, they finished the project for the canopy at the entrance at Broad Meadow, if you haven't driven by. And she wants to put some benches out under it, okay? But we don't currently have a funding source to do benches, so, but she keeps asking for money to put the benches in. But we're like, no, we're gonna wait, let's wait till next year, and you decide maybe where you want them, and now that you've lived with it, kind of like when you move into a new place, and you're not sure where to hang the picture. And so she may get an additional allocation because we want to finish out a project. But really, a lot of that's going to go through facilities. Most of our allocation is based on per pupil. So for instance, in Title I, I think to start this year, each school got $460, I think it is, maybe I might be off, per pupil. So that ends up being a lot of money at the junior high, right? Because that's times 500. But at Rise Academy, that's times 25. So, but it's proportional. So most of it is allocated per pupil and how we do it, or about per pupil. We do have some other assumptions in there, like whether you have 300 students if you have 300 students in a building or you have 200 students in a building, there's still a certain amount of money needed to maintain the building.
I just wasn't sure if there was like a formal process as you do your budget process.
The biggest ask we get from principals is for staff. So there is a process for that, to ask for new staff. So it's a form that they get to fill out, and I get to say no. Alright. So anyway, I know that was probably too long, but every year I do budgeting, I learn more on school budgets, but there is a method behind it. I don't want you to think we're just, throwing stuff at the wall and.
You sounded about like that webinar I watched on the 17th.
Oh, so boring.
About budgets.
Yeah. The hardest thing, and this is kind of in my next slide, the hardest thing in being a school district in Illinois is we don't know what we're getting at the start of the year. So we have to have the budget approved before September 30th. ISB hasn't announced what we're getting yet in evidence-based funding yet, which is our single largest source. We think we're getting more money than last year, but we don't know. And now I've been keeping you informed about some of the federal government concerns. So those grant funds haven't been released. Well, school starts in 3 weeks, and we don't have a spending plan because we don't. Well, we do, but fortunately, most of our spending is people, right? And so we know that's happening one way or the other. Yeah. But anyway, that was a lot. Questions about how long was that? Ooh. I told Mr. Roundtree next month he gets 10 minutes, and I just took 25. So, okay, that was it for budgeting. Any discussion on that? Any questions? Kind of asked us.
Okay. Any discussion or questions about any of that?
No, just thank you.
It'd take too long.
The board president could cut, or the acting pro tem can cut me off whenever she wants.
Fabulous. He says that after his presentation. Do I list all the letters?
No, we just information items, and I usually just kind of run through those real quick.
Okay, so next is the information items, which are the FOIA requests.
Yep, we had no media this month, which I guess is good or bad. The tentative budget will be posted before the next meeting.
Okay.
I did put in the summer school and retention report. I had some questions on that. The main thing is we didn't really operate a summer school program for elementary this year because of all the changes that were happening. But we did run our regular program for the junior high. One thing I want to clarify is, based on the questions I had, we do not do social promotion, which is what it's called. If a student does not meet the requirements and does not successfully go through the junior high summer school, they will not go on to the next grade level. The exception is if, and this was Mr. Henderson had this in his report, there's 4 students that, they did go to summer school, but they're also going to end up going to Rise Academy next year as an alternative to retention. So what that means is we could justify retaining those kids, but they're going to go to Rise, and he does some things where through some online systems where they're able to do additional coursework, and so we don't retain those kids. But if it's an 8th grader, for instance, and they don't pass and they don't go to summer school, they will get retained. And I explained the exception would be is, I don't really need this to get out on the news, but once a student is 15, they are a high school student, and they are Rantoul High School student. So Rantoul High School may, in that case, want to enroll that student, especially if it's a special ed student, so they can get them into their program and try to get them on track towards graduation. But Rantoul High School will not enroll one of our students unless we say they've been promoted. Okay. Which means they have to have passed the school year or successfully gone through summer school. Okay. The board policy changes. So in there, I do want to go with that. I always put my superintendent evaluation tool in at this point in the year because it's customary that employees are informed of that they're being evaluated before the school year starts. So, but the board policy changes. I don't have my notes in front of me. I don't remember. So one was the changes we talked about last month with contracts over the $50,000 amount or under the $50,000 amount. And so our attorney helped put that together. And I really think he may have changed one sentence in there just to, it should reflect what the board discussed last month. The other one came up is I was looking at our credit card policy. And the credit card policy as it's written is not what we currently do. So I looked into press, and there's some alternate language that is in press that reflects what we actually do. So what we actually do is you can spend your credit card limit without getting superintendent approval. So that's why everyone has a limit on there. The way it's written right now, it says that anytime they want to go over $1,000, I think they have to get my approval. That's not actually how we've been operating. So my recommendation is to change the policy that actually reflects the practice, which is that when the board authorizes that limit, that's what guides how much someone can spend with their credit card. And there's still nothing changes the accounting practices behind the scenes on that at all. Okay. Any questions on that?
I know personally, our personal credit cards, we can work and send notifications on spending. Are there any notifications given to the district on those who do have procurement cards, credit cards, if they're close to reaching your limit, so we can get a heads up?
No. We don't reach our limit very often. Hannah, when do we reach the limit on my card? There's one time of the year, right?
There's one time of the year
Yeah.
when we do the,
We'll call the
stuff with
hotels.
for Chicago, we have to do the deposits and all of that, and the stuff.
Okay.
We don't, it depends on how much is already
So
on
if we hit my
it.
limit, what do we do?
We use
honest.
somebody.
We
use
go get
somebody
somebody else's credit
else's
card for $100, so.
We use Chris's card or Allison's card or, yeah.
But it all goes through the same accounting system.
Yeah.
But no, we don't get an alert when we're close to the.
Isn't accounting very good about alerting the school when they even know, hey?
Yes.
So, yeah, they're very good about that.
All of our credit cards are with Bank of Rantoul, and
Okay.
so they're
And they're very good.
they're very easy to work with.
Okay.
They
Okay.
won't let you.
Oh, they won't let you?
What do you wanna buy?
Yeah, well, I used to hit my limit all the time,
This, yeah.
And so-
Um,
that's why I was wondering.
The last item on here, I did share that I think I shared this at the last board meeting, but I identified which exhibits and administrative procedures we were gonna go ahead and make public. And again, that was, after some discussion with our attorney, that those are things that, really just for transparency and access for, families and staff to those. There's no reason not to make those public. But what I want to clarify is exhibits and administrative procedures that are published, they are not board approved. And they only serve as guidance. That's an important distinction. So that's what goes on with those. The other information items I want to share is next month, I'm going to have Mr. Roundtree and his staff, Jamie Roundtree, do a presentation on what's going on with curriculum from the Instructional Advisory Committee. And then I'm going to do a report on last school year's discipline and have Mr. Henderson talk about what the discipline committee is working on for this school year, going into this school year. So that will be on next month.
5 minutes?
My presentation?
No, his.
He's
5
mostly
minutes?
going to be there to answer questions.
Okay.
I think. So I'm going to be the one, I'll put the data together and I'll probably share that presentation in advance just so I'm not reading every slide to you. And then, yeah, he's actually starting some things with our admin team next week. Yeah, Mr. Henderson.
And did you or will you send us your PowerPoint on the budget?
Oh, I can do that.
Please? Thank you.
That's all I have.
Okay, are there any, is there any more discussion about the information items or anything?
I was just going to ask, web page. I see that it was launched in, what was it, April?
Mhm.
April 1, okay.
I don't know if it was April 1.
Huh?
I don't know the date it was on.
I don't know exactly either, but I was in and around. I think it was the district improvement plan. I think it was targeted for March, but I think it was after that the new page was launched. And I want to comment, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, down at the very bottom, you have to scroll to the very bottom of the homepage, but there is an area where you could submit comments or questions, and does that go to the board or to you or both?
Well, I don't know that we've had one yet.
Do you want me to send one just to test?
Might as well. It might be I don't think it's at the bottom. We have a contact us point.
Yeah,
there.
contact us.
Yep, that goes to an info@RCS email.
Yes, and that's the form.
Yep. And it goes to an info, and who gets that? Me, Hannah, Yasmin, there's a few of us that get it. Because we get a lot of emails through that there's a whole group of us that get them and we determine where it needs to go.
Okay,
But it does not go to the board, no.
okay. But that is available for community
Yep.
members. You encourage parents to use the other app, or is that parent?
Yeah, I mean, parents email all the time, so that's.
Through
yeah,
that.
Yeah.
But the community, or anybody
What, I
can
think
use
what
that.
we were aiming at doing with this is it should also allow someone to make an anonymous comment that would come through as an email. Or just any feedback in general could come that way, but yeah, it goes to like a mailbox that a bunch of us receive it.
Okay,
And right now, we're inundated with emails about registration,
okay.
so.
Could we add to the?
What?
I was just like, the drop down where it's like, will you select which school? I mean, I suppose you could add.
Good point, yeah, I believe if they do this and they select Northview, it's gonna go to, so there's a info@rcs137.org, but there's also it was probably NV info would go to Northview. So those are set up for each of the schools.
For
So
central.
right, if someone selects the school, it'll go to just that, so I won't get one that's directed to Northview.
Okay.
And then it go to what, straight to,
It should go to, it's probably going to the principal, assistant principal, and the
Principal,
secretaries.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is then, okay.
Yeah. But those I don't know where we post those emails, but they would be, let's just go to the president page. I don't know if they have a separate one posted.
I remember Northview's, I think, is ND.
Yeah, it's down here.
Yeah.
And where you would normally find contact info for a, yeah. PA info. Okay.
Anything else?
And, just to mention, and if you wanna explain that again, since we're in a meeting setting, I saw on the news an article about the transportation and the app that parents can download, for real time, for the buses, to pick up their child, et cetera. I thought that was very great, I like seeing that, and I did share it to different pages on Facebook to try to get the word out a little bit more.
Yeah, parents have definitely been accessing it because
They have,
the first day we had it up, there was no route information.
okay.
So we found out who accessed it first. But there's route information in there now.
It's real helpful for someone that knows how to do it.
Yeah.
Because don't get me wrong, I keep going back to this Unit 4, but my daughter uses it to keep track of her son.
Kids can use it.
It's pretty
too,
it's
and
pretty
know when their
neat,
bus is
actually.
coming.
It's really neat.
Yeah. It's live. where
I
the bus
like
is.
it.
Anything else?
That's it. On the roll for a new school year, successful school year.
We hope. We will.
We will, yes, we will.
Yeah. All registration is happening right now. If I stay here one more hour, I don't have to go down.
Are there any board or superintendent comments?
I don't know.
Anyone have anything? Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn? Oh, sorry.
I'd like to express my appreciation to the superintendent and his staff for all that have gone through this, this information. Again, I really, and I do appreciate the questions and things been brought up, but, you know, I just hope that we have not lost our main concern, and that is what we do, what is best for our district. That we, you know, that should be our number one goal, what's best for the district. And, so I'd like to hope that we all keep that in mind. Myself, I'm not excluding anybody, I need to do that too. That what is most important is what we do for the district, how we make it better for our students. And, that to me is paramount. So, that's what I would say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have a comment?
Stay cool.
Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make the motion that we adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
All in
favor?
Aye.
If anyone opposed, we are supposed to do that part. Turn off the recording.
I'm on my slug to the whole.
All these sweatshirts.
A lot of them.
I felt so bad. I couldn't figure out how to turn
Is it off?
notifications, and I just kept wearing.
Mine